Hi everybody, welcome back to the Cupcake Jemma channel with me. I am Sally and I am here in the beautiful Cupcake Jemma studio. This is our first kind of dedicated space for the Cupcake Jemma channel until now, and a little bit in the future because as you can see it's pretty empty. We've been kind of finding little spaces in the Crumbs and Doilies bakeries, or we've been going to Sam's flat, Gemma's flat, wherever we can find some space, which is wonderful, but it's not ideal because there usually isn't that much space for us. Anyway, so we've got this awesome space, which is gonna be like a really, really cool film studio. But at the moment, as you can see, we have a beautiful pink sofa, we have a bin, we have a coffee table made out of a piece of wood and some cardboard boxes. So that's kind of it at the moment. But if you want to see a little tour, I'm going to do a little walk around and we're going to pop that over on our bake club, which you can find at patreon.com/CupcakeJemma. And as we start to build this place out, we're going to document the whole thing over there. We've finally all agreed on a kind of design that we want to do, so we are ready to go. So hopefully that's all going to be kicking off super, super soon. But I thought, what the hell, let's come up here and film something. So, you guys aren't really here for that, you're here for cake, I'm here for cake, Sam's here for cake, Nikki's here for cake, we're all here for cake, which is great, because I'm gonna show you how to make an absolute classic, super delicious coffee and walnut cake. We've done quite a lot of kind of technical things here on the channel. Dane did his pistachio macarons, we had those ridiculously amazing Bananarama cupcakes. So I'm taking it back. We're going way, way back to basics, back to the old days. Now this cake really reminds me of my childhood. It's a cake that my mum would make and I'd probably get in the way and like lick the bowl and stuff. She'd make it for my dad. It's just a super classic cake. You can find it pretty much in all the kind of cafes and tea rooms across England. It's a great place to start if you're new to baking. So that's what we're going to do today. I can't believe we haven't ever done this on the channel. So the first thing that we're going to do is beat together some butter and sugar. Now I'm going to be doing this in this beautiful, so super cute little mixer, which is named Nikki. I wonder who named it Nikki. But you really don't need a mixer for this kind of cake. You can do it with an electric hand whisk, or you can just do it with a wooden spoon and your arm in a bowl. The only thing is it might be a little bit hard work, but something that will make it easier for you is to soften your butter. So soft butter is super important for when you're making cakes like this, because we want to be able to beat it, we want to be able to whip air into it to get a nice fluffy light cake sponge. So I've got 250 grams. To soften it, if you've got a microwave, you can just pop it in kind of on a low to medium setting for a few seconds at a time, just stirring it until it gets lovely and spreadable and soft. So in goes 250 grams of unsalted butter, along with 250 grams of caster sugar. You can use caster sugar or granulated sugar. Caster sugar is a lot finer, so it just dissolves a lot quicker, again giving you a nice kind of smoother cake, less kind of chance of it being a bit dry. So let's get our mixer down and let's get it on. So we're going to beat this together on a medium to high speed for about 5 minutes. You might need to stop and scrape every now and again, but we want it to be really kind of fluffy, it'll have volumized a bit and it'll be pale in color. Alrighty, so you're going to stop beating when your butter and your sugar mixture looks like this. It's really lovely and white in color, it's lovely and fluffy. Delicious. So now we can start adding some eggs. So in total, I've got 4 eggs. They don't have to be as beautiful as these eggs, but I mean, look at that. Bringing the color to the empty studio. We're gonna add 1 egg at a time. And as usual, I'm always cracking my eggs into a separate bowl so that we don't get any shell in our cake. So that guy's going to go in. And we're going to beat each one really well in between each addition, because again, the more you whip, the more air you create. All right, so the eggs are all in, they've all combined. It is time to add some flour. Now, I'm just going to say at this stage, if you've added all your eggs and you think it's looking a little bit kind of split, and by that we mean kind of like scrambled egg, please do not worry. Like, it's completely fine. As soon as you start putting your dry ingredients in, it's all going to come back together. So do not freak out if you've not seen that before and it happens. So let's go in with some dry. So I've got 250 grams of self-raising flour here. Now I am actually going to chuck all of this in at once, and it is sifted. It's always important to sift your dry ingredients. We're going to I'll mix it onto the lowest speed because we've created all of that air by whipping our butter and our eggs. It's a really light kind of base. If we chuck in that heavy flour and beat it, it's going to break down all that lovely lightness. So a nice low speed, and you're going to mix it until it's just combined. Once it's just come together, we're going to start adding our coffee and walnuts, because that is what this cake is about. It's a coffee and walnut cake. So I've got 50 grams of walnuts here, which I have chopped up pretty small because I want them to kind of spread nice and evenly around the batter. So we're going to chuck all of those in. And then before we get the mixer going, let me talk about coffee. Now, I think that for this cake, you should get yourself some proper coffee, like a really nice one from your local coffee store or something, because it is the main flavour of this cake. When you're using coffee in like a chocolate cake, the coffee just intensifies the chocolate, but this is all about the coffee. So luckily, we have fantastic coffee here at Crumbs and Doilies, so I didn't have to go too far to get mine. But I'd recommend popping down to your local cafe or something and get yourself 2 shots of double espresso, and that's going to do plenty for this cake. We're going to add it tablespoon at a time. Of course, don't worry about that, but do make sure it's nice and strong. If you can't go out and get some, I'd use the instant granules, and I'd do a full tablespoon and mix that with 3 tablespoons for the base of your sponge. And what we're going to do is turn our mixer onto the low speed again, and we're going to add 3 tablespoons of this cooled coffee and keep mixing until the walnuts and the coffee have fully combined. Yum, yum, yum. It smells amazing. And something about a coffee sponge, it just looks so gorgeous. It kind of makes it really like silky. I just want to grab a spoon and dive straight on into this, but I understand that's frowned upon sometimes. So before we scoop this out, I'm just going to go once round with my spatula just to make sure we haven't missed any bits of batter and it's all one gorgeous thing. And then we're going to grab our tins. So I'm going to be doing 3 layers of 7-inch cake for this one, but I'm going to give you a couple of different options in the description box below. If you just want to go for the super classic 2 layers, I'll give you some options there too, but with 3 layers of cake, you get that extra layer of icing, and for me, cake is all about the icing. I don't know about you. Anyway, we need to grease and line these. Now, if you've got some quick release spray, that is amazing, because look how fast this is. 1, 2, 3, done, and that's going to ensure that our cake comes out really nice and quickly and easily without breaking once it's come out of the oven. But if you don't have any of this, don't worry. You can just get some kitchen roll or a bit of tissue, wipe some butter all around the sides and the bottom of your tins, dust them with flour, get rid of the excess flour, and you're good to go. So now we just need to divide our batter between these. Now I'm just going to do this by eye. If you want to be super pro, then by all means weigh each one, but you can kind of get the gist by eye, I think. So dollop it in as best and evenly as you can. Just scrape this all out. And then we're going to grab a spatula, or you can just use the back of your spoon, and we're just going to even these out ever so slightly. They don't need to be perfectly flat. And now it is off to the oven. And for me, well, I mean, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to have to walk these all the way downstairs to the bakery, because that's the best thing about this studio, is we are directly above the Crumbs and Doilies bakery. But for you guys, hopefully your oven is just like here or something. You're going to preheat it to 170 degrees C, which is fan assisted. Check the description box below to see what to do if you don't have a fan assisted oven. And we're going to pop them in for around between 20 and 24 minutes. I'd put them in for 20 and give them a test, unless you already know that cakes in your oven take a little bit longer. For us, it's 24 minutes, but you want to test each one with a skewer. You're going to poke it into the middle. As long as it's clean, they are done. If there's a little bit of cake goo on there, leave them in for a minute or 2 longer. So can someone get the door for me? And just like that, here I am with 3 beautifully baked and cooled down coffee and walnut sponges. So they're just going to sit here for a little bit longer because we've got buttercream to make. Now you could make any kind of buttercream you want for this. You could do a Swiss if that's your thing, but for me, coffee, American style buttercream is like, it's the one because it's so buttery and delicious. So in my bowl here, I've got 250 grams of very soft, again, unsalted butter. Again, we want it soft because again, we want to whip it up. We want really light icing here. We don't want kind of stodgy waxiness. So we're going to get the mixer on again to a high speed. We're going to whip the butter all on its own for at least 5 minutes. And just like that, we have got this. It is so soft, it is so pale. People always ask us, like, how do you get your buttercream so white? It's literally all about whipping. Whip, whip, whip. And we're gonna continue to whip once we add our icing sugar. Just gonna take my paddle out for a second. Now I've got 400 grams of icing sugar here, which I've already sifted. I'm gonna add half of this in now. And I'm actually just going to, before we put the paddle in, I don't want to make a mess in this lovely space. I'm going to try and prevent mess by just giving this a quick fold together just so that the icing sugar doesn't kind of fly all over the place. We'll see, famous last words. And then we're going to pop the paddle back on and get this mixing again on another high speed for 3 to 4 minutes. We're just going to keep on whipping this. So once that's had a good 3 to 4 minutes, we're going to add the rest of the icing sugar. And I am going to do the same thing. So I'm going to add it, stir it together gently, pop the paddle back on, mix it for another 3 to 4 minutes. All right, that is done. And now it is time to add the coffee. So I'm actually going to pop him back on to the lowest speed, and we're going to add some more of our coffee. So we're going to do this tablespoon at a time. You want to get maximum flavour in there, but you obviously don't want like sloppy icing. So whenever you're adding liquid to icing, you just want to go bit by bit. So I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons, get that mixing, and then we'll test the consistency. So it's looking pretty good, but I think it can take a little bit more coffee. So I'm going to go in with this last tablespoon. And we're going to whip that back up. I'm just going to give it a final kind of 2 minutes, just for good measure. I want to eat it so bad. Smells amazing. It looks absolutely beautiful. And let me tell you, I had a little taste just now, and it is delicious. So we can crack on and start icing our cake. So we're just going to keep this nice and simple. And I actually mean that. I know sometimes I say these things and I get a bit overexcited. But we're just going to do 3 layers of sponge, a bit of icing in between and a bit of icing on top. But the first thing we're going to do, don't worry, I am keeping it simple. But we want things to look neat, right? We're just going to kind of neaten up the tops of our cakes, because where they've baked, they always get a little bit of a kind of a crispy, crusty top. So what I'm going to do is I've popped it on a bit of greaseproof. If you've got a turntable, which I actually do, you could use that, but I'm going to show you guys how to do it without. Again, if you've got a cake leveler, then you can use one of those. But again, I'm going to show you how to do it with a serrated knife. So I'm going to gently get my knife going, and you want to keep your knife as level as possible. So there we go, literally just the thinnest piece coming off the top, which by all means keep and eat. I'm sure you'll find someone in your house that will gladly eat a little bit of cake scrap. If not, don't worry, it's not loads. So we're just going to do that to the other 2 layers of cake before we get icing. So those are our 3 layers, looking nice and kind of nice and smooth, nice and even, nice and neat. So now let me just go down here and come back up avec turntable. So if you don't have one, again, it's really not the end of the world, especially with this. We're not going to be crumb coating or anything like that, but they do make life as a cake decorator a whole lot easier. And I've also got a board here. You can use any kind of board or even a plate again, because we're not going to be trying to get around the edge of it. Like a nice plate would actually be pretty cute for this. So first things first, we need to stick our first bit of sponge down. So grab some of your mighty delightful icing and just put a little blob in the middle, just so that our cake doesn't slip and slide around. And we'll put our first layer down and just try and get it in the middle. You know, all this stuff adds up to getting a nice looking cake. So what I'm going to do first is put the filling in, obviously, but I am going to make mine look a little bit fancy with some kind of piped icing. But we'll get to that. So first of all, we'll put a nice generous blob in the middle, and we're going to use our palette knife to spread it almost to the edges, leaving a little rim. So if you don't want to do any kind of fancy piping like I'm going to do, which is not super fancy, then you can just ice this and take your icing all the way up to the edge, so that when you put your next layer on top, you do see the icing, because, I mean, why wouldn't you put icing all the way up to the edge? But for me, I have myself a piping bag here, and I've gone for a rose nozzle on the end, which looks like this. I think it's called a 1M. Please don't quote me on that. Maybe. I'll find out and I'll put it in the description box below. It's one of the ones that you can get in our large nozzle set from CupcakeJemma.com. It's super pretty and super useful. So I'm just putting a little bit of icing into here. Squeeze it down to the end, twist the end of the bag so it doesn't come flying out in your face. Worst things to be flying in your face though, aren't there? Let's be honest. And all I'm going to do is pipe a little flourish all the way around the edge. Once you've gone all the way around, we can grab our second layer of cake and very gently put it on top. Now if you've piped it, you do want to try and get it as in the middle as possible, because you don't really want to smush that beautiful piping. But I just love the piping because we're not going to ice the edges. It just kind of adds an extra little special effect. So we're going to do exactly the same thing with this one. We're going to fill it and then we're going to pipe it. So for the top piece, what we're going to do is turn it upside down. And I do this regardless of what we were doing, whether we were crumb coating it or not, just because it's a lot easier to ice this than it is to ice this. This is going to pull off loads of crumbs and we don't want that. So upside down, and again, line it up. Before I push it down, I always give it a little turn just to make sure it's even all the way around. And I'm pretty happy with that. So now it is onto the top. I'm just going to put another nice level, even layer of the buttercream, and this time I am going to go all the way to the edge. So you can leave this cake like this. You can try and get it really smooth. You can put a bit of texture into it, which I'm going to do. I'm just going to do this kind of like circle spiral effect. So I'm going to hold my palette knife. I'm going to start from the center, but Nikki just told me that she starts from the outside, so either way is fine. I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure and I'm going to spin my cake on the turntable and overlap each line. And now a coffee and walnut cake would not be a coffee and walnut cake unless it had some walnuts on top. So I've got a little bit of icing left, so I've got it in my piping bag with that lovely nozzle. I'm going to do a blob like so, all kind of frilly, and then I'm going to pop on top Senor Walnut. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that looks mighty pretty. Like I said, it's very simple, it's very basic, but I love it. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Not really. The moment I've been waiting for, and that is to cut into this cake. Oh! Just slides right on through. Look at the size of that slice. I'm going to make it stand up because Sam made quite a point about the fact that my plate is so small. And he probably knew I was gonna cut a massive, massive slice, but look at this. It's just so pretty. You can see just how fluffy and moist that sponge is gonna be. Good old generous layer of icing there, and our little chopped walnuts in the sponge as well. There's only one thing for this. Oh, here we go. My favourite, my absolute favourite. Something about the, coffee is really intense, right? Really bitter. I know a lot of people don't like it, but you put it in icing and it just completely sweetens it up. And the butteriness from the sponge paired with the coffee. Maybe you could put butter in your coffee. No, I'm kidding, don't do that. Make a coffee cake. This is so good. And the icing is so silky and soft. It is such a crowd pleaser, and I guarantee if you make this and you take it anywhere, people are gonna love you. They're gonna think it's amazing, because it is. And of course, I love a fancy cake. It's like 3-tiered, it's got icing all over it, it's got drips, it's got all this, but I also think you just can't beat a classic cake. And if you want more of these kind of bakes, then I'll pop a playlist in the description box below for some more classics, like we've done the lemon drizzle, black forest gatto, hummingbird, all those kind of like nice, simple sponge and icing type stitches. I'll put a link to that below, as well as the mindful baking as well, if you want something nice and simple, nothing too stressful. We've got a few of those on the channel, and I'll be bringing you another one of those very soon, a delicious streusel cake, which has got cinnamon and pecans in it, and it's really gorgeous. So stay tuned for that. We've got loads more fun stuff coming up. I know Jemma is like dying to do some jam donuts. I mean, I think she's dying to do them. I think the rest of us are like, come on, Jemma, make us some jam donuts, because we love donuts around here, and I know that you guys are going to love them as well. So we'll be back very, very soon. Make sure you come and hang out with us over on our Bake Club. Go to patreon.com/CupcakeJemma, and of course check out our Instagram account @CupcakeJemma and @Crumbs&Doilies for all the cakey goodness. And if you want even more cakey goodness, you can come to our shop. Oh, I could go on. Links to everything in the description box below. That's it, guys. Cake drop, but don't drop the cake. Like, eat the cake.